Children of Erte, we have two openly disabled cast members. I play a disabled character in the show, but the story isn't about that. But we created cool devices and found ways to express that in the world. And people watching went, "Oh, I never even thought of doing that. I never even imagined that you could have a world like that or use tools like that."
Well, and I think too, one of the important points there to pull out is the idea that just because you make a story with characters who have disabilities, and I think it's important, by the way, as you and I have discussed, phrasing it as characters with disabilities, not disabled characters, because that's an important visual. Excuse me, that's an important.
Wrong.
No,
the opposite
I got it backwards.
Way. Yeah, disabled characters.
For years, I was told it was the other direction. This
is
okay,
for years people did say it the other way, but the thing about that was it was non-disabled people who went. So it's called identity first versus person first. Person first is a person with a disability.
Educate me.
Yeah, and so person first language is where you say it's a person with a disability. The disabled community in general, if you look at sort of people who do have an emphasis on disability studies, do disabled activism, things like that, the preference generally is identity first, because it's not something we can like go leave at home when we go to the store. It's not something that can be divested. It's everything down to how I hold like a soda can. For me, my disability affects all of those things. Person first was primarily it was advocated for a lot like starting in the 80s and 90s, because it was like, let's see the person. And I go, no, I should be seen as a person by default. Thank you very much. Right. Like, I don't need to make you see me as a person. The people now who tend to advocate, and this is not universal, disability is not a monolith. Our community has very different feelings about this, but a lot of the folks I work with and a lot of the literature and the folks doing academic work on this prefer identity first. But person first now is often advocated for by non-disabled people as a way to, like, it's very othering. It's a weird grammatical gymnastic thing. And, you know, the autistic community is the same way. Yeah. So, I mean, they both can be used as long as you're not using something like handicapped, or there are terms that are really like no one's going to get mad at you for that, but that tends to be the preference.
Well, but I think it's important. I mean, I have a point I want to get back to in a minute, but this is a more important one, I think, actually, because it's not about how I want to express. It's about how the person I'm referring to wants to be expressed about and towards.
Yeah.
So thank you for
ideally,
educating me. That's really
the
important.
best way to do it, like any identity that you're discussing, is ask the person about their individual preferences, because people do have different preferences, and different communities. I would say one of the exceptions to this is often the intellectually disabled community. The ID community frequently will request person first language instead. That's very much unique. Yeah. It's complicated.
Thank you for the education. No, it is, and I think the interesting thing that I not only am learning in this moment, of course, but also was trying to make a point of, was that it's less about making stories about disabilities and instead being about, you know, disabled people being in the story. And it's not making the focus of the story their disabilities so much as, oh, we need a magically enchanted wheelchair. Great. That's a thing we've got now. Now we're doing the story. And it's not trying to, you pointed to the 80s and 90s, where I remember a time where every story about somebody who had any kind of disability, it was this like hero's tale of how they were overcoming this incredible thing and how brave they were and how wonderful it was to see them. I foolish, but what's the term you want to tell me?
Inspiration porn.